Hello everyone, welcome to Python lesson 3 of the Coderina lifelong learning cohort. So this class is going to be another pre-recorded lesson just like week 2. After this, however, we'll be moving back to a live stream type of video conference where we'll then be allowed to discuss topics together and it won't be recorded anymore. So this will give us real-time discussions and projects. It'll be definitely different and I'm excited to get back to that type of conversation in regards to Python. However, this episode is going to be another pre-recorded one. So it's just going to be another little lecture. And today we're going to be focusing on a couple of different topics. We'll start with a quick review and then move into loops, dictionaries, Python packages, and challenges. And just for a quick little review, I'm going to just ask, what do you remember from our last lesson? If you just want to kind of write it down even for yourself or just look back and reflect on our last lesson, that'd be great. Think about what you remember and what was most memorable about your lessons that you had due to the week 2 program. And so some of the things we worked on were math and functions, especially together. If you remember, we learned how to create our own functions and we used it to make a calculator that took math and were able to give us different numbers. And we also have an if-else conditional. So we started diving into the world of conditionals and how code can make decisions on its own. So we're going to jump right into it with loops. So loops allow code to continuously run. So let's say you want to print all the items in a list, but not at once. This would be a way to do it. We have 3 different types of loops. You have for loops, which run for a set amount of time. So for item in this list, or for the cars in the street. So it's set by a specific number. So for every item in a, specifically here, a list, or as we'll get into later, even a dictionary. And then we also have while loops. Whiles are another type of conditional. As long as that conditional that you set is met, the code will continue to run. So while x equals bananas, or while x equals 2, continue to run the code that I have below. Then you have infinite loops, which are, very they make sense just based on their name. So that is a loop that will never stop ever, and it will just continuously run for infinity. You don't really ever use them, but they're just a fun little thing to kind of know about and to even play around a little bit with. So for loops, as you can see here, I created first a list. That list has all the numbers of 1 to 10. The way you format a for loop is by writing for, then x or n, so for item is usually what that is, in this case, my list, followed by a semicolon. So, sorry, wrong way. I'll go ahead and show you here. I made a list, and you want to type for. So for always lets the code know, okay, she's writing a for loop. Then you follow it by x or I or n. It doesn't really matter, but it's just a character and a placeholder that acknowledges that for an item in something else. So in this case, I'm going to do for x in my list. So for every item in my list above here, I want it to print x. How's that sound? All right, so then I'm going to remove those brackets. I'm going to run it. And as you can see, I have printed every single item in that list. Now I could say print hello. And that's going to print hello every single time I have an item in my list. So that's just a fun little review of for loops. We'll get more into it a little bit later. But then we also have something called while loops. While loops, again, are a set conditional. So in this case in the code, I wrote I equals 1. So as long as I is less than 10, I want you to print whatever I value is. But then I also want you to add 1 to I. So whenever you want to write a while loop, you write, so I'm just going to set I to 1, while, and that lets it know, okay, this is a while loop versus a for loop. So while I is less than 10, it accidentally ran it, print I. Now I also want to write I plus is equal 1. So you can write this plus equal, or you can write I equals I plus 1. But this plus equals is a little shortcut to this piece of code I just wrote below. So now when I run that, as long as I is less than 10, it's going to print to 9. I can remove this list too, if that helps. But another way you can do it is like, for instance, if I change this right now and do it to 100, it's going to print to 100. So that's just an example of a while loop. So we also have our infinite loops. Now, infinite loops are written like while loops. So when you write a while loop, you set a conditional, right, that eventually should be no longer met. But if I, instead of having this part here, take it away, it's going to continue to print I as 1 for forever. And that code, whatever I would to write in here, it will run forever because I is always going to be less than 100. Because here I set it as it equals 1. So that's just a quick way to, if you ever wanted to make an infinite loop, how you would do so. It's kind of difficult for your computer to sometimes run code like this. So it's not always the greatest idea to do it, and you're not going to really need it in projects, but it's always fun to play around with. So we're going to jump quickly into a little activity, and this is going to be to create an alphabet list. So our goal in this is every time you want to create a function that whenever you type, like, I don't know, letters, characters into it, it's going to save it and create its own little alphabet list, but only based on the things that you use, if that makes sense. So let me show you. I want to create, let's say, a function that whatever letters I type here are stored in a list. And that's kind of the format we want to have, so that as you type things into this function, it's going to add more and more letters. So the way to do that to start is by creating an alphabet list. So you want to open a new Jupyter notebook. You want to name it alphabet list or whatever you'd like, and then create an empty list to store letters. Once you create that list, we're going to make a function that iterates over the letters placed as an argument. So whatever you type into that function is then going to be run over and repeated over until all the letters are saved. Then you want to take those letters and we want to save them to the list. So the best way to explain this is by showing. So I'm going to show you quickly and then you can do it on your own. So here I have some code that's already written for this. So I created a list in my first thing called alphabet. Now alphabet is an empty list, there's nothing in it yet, but we're going to put things in it. So next I've defined my function. If you remember, we define a function by putting def followed by the function name and our argument. So in this case, the definition of my alphabet maker will be the word. So whatever I type that I'm going to put into this function. So now I have a for in X in words. So whatever's in this bracket here, which in this case might be hello world even, for each item in word, if, well, we'll just go to this part here. We want to alphabet.append X. I'm going to take this out quickly and remove it, just so we can look at this. I'm going to run this code. So what I did here is, remember I wrote this, then for X in words, so whatever, for every item in this string that I put in, I want you to append it to my list, which is alphabet. And then I'm going to call here alphabet maker. This is when I'm actually writing the code for the function. And in this case, I put the great white fox jumped over the wall. Now when I run this code, it's taking the letters from that and applying it to this list I've made. So as you can see, I've got all the letters, spaces of the sentence that I put up here. Now, one of the things you notice is we don't necessarily want these spaces, right? Because that's not a letter. That's not going to be part of our alphabet maker. So I'm going to set an if-else statement. So if X, so if the item in our word down here is a space, we don't want it included. So if X is equal to a space surrounded by the quotations, pass. Now pass is a nice way of being able to say, don't run over that, so just ignore it. So if X is equal to a space, we want you to ignore it. Otherwise, add it to our list, right? So now we did it. If you look, our list is all these different letters, and there's no longer any more spaces. Now there's one more issue with our alphabet maker. If we want our alphabet maker list to be of only one instance of a letter, we got to fix that. So like if you look down here at wall, I have two L's. I have H that occurs several times in my list. And I'm trying to make an alphabet maker, not just a collector. So I want it to remove any values that have already been there before. So I'm just going to print this to show you what I'm going to do. And I didn't mean to hit that. So here I've created my if, right? If X is a space, we want to pass. Else, add it on. What if it already exists? What if it's already on the list? I'm going to make another if statement underneath my else. If X is in alphabet, we want it to pass again. Else, add this on. And as you notice, our list just got a lot shorter than our last time because now it's only adding on unique values. So you just created a code that will allow you to make a letter. So now let's watch if I add something else and I change it to hello there from Indiana, which is where I live, hello there from Indiana. I'm going to change it to just the letters that are new. So if you want to do this on your own and create this code, you can pause the video now and go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move on forward. This is just about the uniqueness. So this is, again, what it will end up looking like. So this is just, if you wanted to look at the code one more time, how it was written. We're going to move into dictionaries. So dictionaries are a very interesting type of data in Python, and one that we won't be using much, but it's great to spend a moment to learn about and start practicing with. So dictionaries are very similar to what they sound like. So it's where you have almost a three-dimensional list. So I'm going to go over here and delete that cell and show you. So here I've created a dictionary, and dictionaries are created by key and value, key and value, key and value. So if I go over here, I can show you again, is that you create a dictionary with this type of format. So every time that you call the key, it's going to print the value. So if you've ever created or used an address book before, you know how you might look up someone's name, then it gives you their phone number, right? That's a type of dictionary. You have a code name and a value that's stored to it. It's very similar to valuables, how you might have X, but the value of X is actually chicken. So that's just something that you can do with dictionaries, is lists, or even, again, dictionaries, where your key will be the word and your value will be what it means. You could actually make your own dictionary. So that's how you would do it. You can then get the values by either printing with this type of format or mydict.get. So you can use either of those methods to ever pull what the value would be. And we're going to do a quick activity with that. So we are going to create a little car info dictionary, which is just pretty much look up a car, or if you have a car you like, or you can make your own car. And we're going to create a list that holds all the information for that car. So I'm gonna go ahead to my little area, and it's just a very, very quick activity. There's no pressure for this one, and it's more supposed to just be fun. So I'm gonna create my car info, which is gonna be my dictionary, which is followed by the equal sign and then the curly brackets. So if you remember, dictionaries have these curly brackets versus the smooth ones that a list has. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna put car name, and I'm gonna put the value as Ford. So that's actually gonna be company. So the company that makes the car. Then I'm gonna do the color, which let's say it's blue. I like blue. And then I'm gonna create my vehicle type. So I'm gonna call it car name, car model, which is gonna be, in my case, an Escape. And let's say my new car was created in the year 2022, which of course isn't real, but it's just for fun. So now, if I put my car info dot get, and I put, let's say, company, should print it. Let's try it again. Oh, you know what? These have to be in, I forgot to put these in parentheses. So once you put everything in parentheses, and you put this in parentheses too, it works. And as you see, it printed Ford as the company that made my car. Now I can just print my car info, and it's gonna give me this, which shows me, okay, so the company that made it was Ford, color is blue, the model is an Escape, in the year is 2022. So that's just a little fun exercise. If you want to do any car you'd like, you can then, save it so that you have it. You can be like, hey, we made a car dictionary. So we're going to just move quickly on to the next topic now, which will be packages. Now, packages are prepackaged lines of code that you can import and use in your coding environment. They're very similar to how you already have functions such as get info or print that we've used that you didn't make yourself. So we can take in packages that have been created by other coders that will allow us to do really cool things in Python that you might have not been able to do before. So there are two very important packages that we'll be eventually using, but you always want to import them is import package name and then the nickname. So the first package that we'll be learning how to use is called pandas. First of all, it's not a real animal. It's not pandas, but it is used for data analysis. The biggest point of pandas that's very helpful is it allows you to create data frames. This is very similar to like an Excel sheet or a CSV file, if you know what those are. If you don't, that's totally okay. We're going to be going over those in our later lessons. But so we're going to be learning how to create those, but you have to use Python to do it. So one of the things that we'll learn how to import is pandas, and the other is NumPy. Now I have this box here because NumPy is kind of used for structure. It's also used for data analysis, and it allows you to create two cool things. One's called an array, and the other is called a set. So that's really helpful, and those are used for computing. So, typing up files or being able to do more analysis type work. And so I know we already reviewed this, but we're going to start working on this project next week. So using those two packages and the things that we've learned in the past, we're going to be doing this project based on the Olympics. So have you ever watched the Olympics and you know that it features some of, the best sports and athletes in the world? And so we're going to be using a data set on the Olympics from 1986 up until now. And we're going to analyze the relationships between data points, look at correlations, regression, and data analysis, really, that you would often actually do in a high school class. So just a little fun point is I got my courses that I'm having over the semester, and what we're going to be doing in this class is going to be just as cool as that. It's actually going to be about the same level. And we're already doing so much work. And so if you've already starting to get a grasp of what we've done so far, The next part's just going to be really fun, and it's going to be learning what we have so far and applying it to this project. So that's kind of just it for today. Is we've learned about packages, loops, and then also we worked on dictionaries. If you have any questions, obviously you can't ask me now, but you can always email and contact Coderina to get some answers. I believe there's a forum too that you can work on through there. But thank you again for coming. Starting to next week, we will be doing live classes again. We'll be going a little more in depth. So again, feel free to go over any parts of these videos if you have any questions, and or to pause them if you want to complete any of the activities. Thank you again. It was so nice to be able to present again, and I'm so excited to see you guys next week.